Hello everyone and welcome back to Easthaven County, our sort of new realistic North American themed City Skylines 2 series, taking place on this island chain somewhere in the southeastern coast areas of Massachusetts. In the most recent episode we implemented what I thought would be the biggest infrastructure changes to the series in quite a while. That may change after this episode, but more on that in just a second. And what we focused on was bringing this railway bridge, which is quite tall because this is the main shipping routes into the actual city and the ports. And we did that by implementing this Rendsburg-inspired railway loop, giving freight access to the North Port, freight access to the South Port, but equally important, allowing us to establish a passenger train station right next to Old Town and Downtown, and bringing in commuter rail lines, basically. Now the rail lines, of course, they end rather abruptly over here because we don't really have other settlements built on the map just yet to connect it to. And as I just teased, this is gonna be another infrastructure heavy episode because we're gonna have to try and fix the interstate setup here. And what I asked you guys on the previous episode was, should we take the interstate and elevate it above Forest Street because this is a low-speed commercial lined avenue, or should we dig it into the ground and have a tunnel so that we've got an uninterrupted stretch of interstate to cut through the island? I think that's going to be important moving forward for like traffic management issues. As usual though, you guys had a better suggestion, which was to actually just create a new stretch of interstate that cuts west of the avenue here and completely bypasses it, then create on and off ramps on either side. It's just a better solution, and it's going to be more interesting to look at as well. So this is going to be a bit of a complex implementation, and I think we're going to start by placing a straight stretch of elevated interstate here on the western side of the city. Then we're gonna move on to redoing this part entirely so that we've got the appropriate off and on ramps, and that you can access the avenue easily from the interstate, but you can also just continue to bypass the city entirely. And then after that we're gonna move over here and try to remake this complete spaghetti bolognese mix I've got over here, which is also gonna be quite interesting. But I think the first thing I'm just gonna do is remove a bit of the development I've got in this area. We built this rather quickly as part of the first episode, so I'm just gonna get rid of this so we've got a bit more space to work with. Alright, let's see. We're gonna go ahead and grab our 2-lane one-way highway. I'm gonna reduce the elevation steps and move it to about 7.5 meters. Importantly, I have enabled bypass validation results in developer mode because it's going to provide a lot more freedom when actually building this. We're going to use the parallel mode to create a parallel stretch, and I might even upgrade without any type of snapping on to make it even closer, but I'll showcase what I mean in just a second. Let's just zoom out for a bit. I'm going to see how we're actually going to align this the best way. So I want just a straight stretch at first, like this, which is pretty perfect. Then we'll add a curve. I'm gonna enable some contour lines as well, because we're gonna go into an area where we'll probably need to lower it a bit due to the height differences here. But we're just gonna start by creating a curved segment here to kind of go into this area, and we're gonna lower it because we don't want any type of elevation. So 0.1 is fine, but we're gonna have stricter curve. And let's see, this is fine. Let's just see if the elevation is okay. We're gonna delete this segment because we're gonna have to do some magic stuff here to actually get it properly connected. I can delete this segment as well. I don't want the segments where it kind of adds automatic retaining walls to either side, because the shadow is just like, it doesn't look right in game, I feel. Next up, we're gonna, like I said, use the upgrade without any snapping to just align these right next to each other, basically. And this is a manual process because it can't snap correctly. Oh, well, we can try. No, it's not gonna work. That looks good. And now that we've got our initial stretch in place, we are gonna start aligning it up here with a connection. Let's see, we're gonna delete, probably this stretch should be fine. And then we're gonna do a little terraforming. So we're gonna grab our slope terrain, we're gonna right click up here and then reduce the size a bit. And then we're just gonna drag so that we've got more of a natural sunken part here. Whoops, I messed that up. Gonna try that again. Cool. And then we're just gonna connect each of these 2-lane segments at first. Just gonna raise the elevation here, remove the parallel mode, and see if we can snap perfectly. I didn't snap to the right place, actually. Sorry, I'm gonna just redo that. Ensure that we're snapping to here. That's right. That should work a little better. I might disable snapping when connecting these to get the best transition I can, but this looks to be pretty flawless. Awesome. Now we're gonna create a bit of a gap between the two lane segments here so that we've got space for some on and off ramps. Proper space at least. And I'm gonna do my best to ensure that this looks nice without interfering too much. Just gonna start by seeing how that looks, and we'll definitely need to elevate. Sorry, not elevate. We're gonna have to lower the height here. We're gonna be cheeky and we're gonna try and just do the full connection to the other highway stretch. And it's gonna be hard to get the snapping I want, but we'll try. Looking pretty alright, and we'll delete this segment here, otherwise the curve is gonna be a little wonky. And then we'll add our connection. And with this in place, we can start working on our very first off-ramp. So I think I'm just gonna reduce the segment here a bit. Then let's see if we can move in and upgrade to a free lane so that we've got a proper lane to start. And it's gonna require a bit of work here, it seems. Ugh. This is probably a little better. I think that's okay. Great, and it's of course always a joy to work with these tools in game. So we're just gonna grab from here, and it seems we can get a very smooth curve. Don't wanna make it too steep. And I'm thinking we're gonna upgrade the final stretch of this to a 2-laner, so we might just disable all snapping and align it as much as possible with the inside lane of this 4-lane highway segment, because then I'm hopeful I should be able to pretty easily just upgrade like that. Yeah, it's a pretty smooth transition here. Let's create an on-ramp as well. We are gonna go ahead and upgrade a segment here to a 3-lane piece. This is probably sufficient. Yeah, we're gonna start here at least. Don't think we need much more room. Then we're gonna go ahead and upgrade these 2 segments here to elevated segments. And then we're gonna do a little terraforming. We'll take the shift terrain tool and let me just see how much space we're gonna need. So we'll go underneath about here. So let's just lower this. We'll grab our level terrain tool and just find a contour line or a level radar that seems fine. I think this might even be a bit too low. We'll go with something like this. And then I'm just gonna pretty roughly terraform it for now. Just gonna level it out. Then I'm gonna grab the slope terrain tool, gonna right click up here. And then I'm gonna left click and drag. So that we've got a smooth transition, smooth incline. I'm gonna right click here and do the very same thing. Cool. As usual, I'm gonna start by going in the wrong direction, so to speak. Gonna start up here. And let's see if we can find 180 degrees. We could. And then we have to go down, of course, or actually up, because currently it's a little too steep. So I'm thinking something like 6% maybe. 6.8 is probably all right. And then we'll have to curve underneath as smooth as possible. We'll go to about here. And how much of an incline is that? I can't actually see that. Alright, it's almost 9%. So I'll just elevate it a bit. 7.4 it seems. Pretty nice. And then we'll need to create our connection from our segment here. But I think we're gonna bring back this node just a little bit. Yeah. There we go. And we're gonna grab our 2-lane highway, go to the very edge here, find a good point. This looks fine. Then let's see if we can get the proper connection in place down here. And we'll of course flip the direction and see how it aligns up. Have a look. That is pretty smooth. I'm going to have to rebuild this segment to force the game into spawning a bridge for me. And I'm thinking we should also get an entrance from this lower part of the avenue and then to it's going to be the northbound direction of the interstate. And why don't we build a left side on-ramp? So a left side highway entrance. These are pretty rare, but they do actually, they are to be found in the wild, and I assume they're pretty rare because you are actually merging onto the fast lane, which you know, kind of requires a bit more of your vehicle basically. They're probably a little dangerous due to that as well, but I mean, real world is dangerous, right? And not everything we build is gonna be perfect. So let's just get ourselves a bit of extra space here. I'm gonna go ahead and use a slope terrain tool, right click up here, and then we're just gonna smoothen it out as much as possible. And then I'm thinking we'll create an extra node here so we can downgrade this to a 1-laner, or rather just bring the node a bit back so we can have the split here. And then we need a curve, proper curve. Let's see, something like this. And we're gonna go up with a couple of % and see just how this is gonna look when we attempt to merge into it. And it's pretty nice actually at first try. And let's see if we can just give a bit more space, just expand this slip lane ever so slightly, and just align as good as we can and delete this. So you've got a bit of extra space here. You're still merging into the fast lane, so it is a little more nerve-wracking, I guess, but I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. And I guess one of the arguments for having left lane on and off ramps is that it can be a little more space efficient, which is also the case here, because otherwise we'd have to go on the outside here, the right side, so we could merge smoothly onto the slow lane. Alright, so that sums up the work we'll be doing here for now at least. We've got some pretty alright looking connections. The real trouble is gonna be over here, of course, because this thing is just a little more complex, and I think for starters, I'm just gonna clean this up and delete a bunch of the stuff we built in the previous episode. This whole area did turn out looking a little weird anyways, which I think a few of you also pointed out, so it's probably good to just get a fresh start and see what we can do. So for starters, let's just prepare and reconfigure Forest Street just a bit, so that it's a little updated for what we want. I'm just gonna smoothen this out. So I'm thinking that to make it a little more interesting, we'll go with 2-lane boulevards instead in a configuration such as this. It's probably a little too narrow, but this should be fine. And we'll just make sure it's perfectly aligned. This should be good. And I am going to upgrade the whole stretch, I think. Just carve the whole thing up. It's gonna have to work on some of the zoning afterwards to get that to play ball and look nice. But for now, this is what we're gonna do just to make it all look a little more interesting. And at the other end of our new configuration, we're gonna, let's see, we've got the interstate here, so we're gonna extend for just a bit, enabling parallel mode again, something like this, and disable parallel mode, and we'll get a closing curve here. And then probably a 2-lane highway to take us up to whatever configuration we're gonna do up here. So let's see if we can just find somewhere that's relatively centered. Something like this, and then we'll go up as such. And this one isn't correct, I can see that. Made a bit of a mistake here. There we go. And we should be able to relatively easily connect up to the street here. Great. So we've got a new configuration of the what was Forest Street, at least here. So we're gonna change up the zoning so we still have commercial stuff lined up next to it. For now, we can just do a little cleanup, get in some of the trees that we want. Don't want parking on the inside here, and I'm gonna create some sort of a park space, or at least some detailing is what I'm trying to say in the middle here. But for now, we're just adding some trees, just trying to make it look a little more interesting. And then we're gonna tackle this beast now. Okay, this is gonna be tricky. Let's upgrade a segment of the bridge here so we can remove this segment. I want to bring the whole thing a little closer to the coastline before we start this, because I'm gonna need all the extra space I can get right here from the get-go. Something like this is a pretty good start. And I think I'm gonna go for a setup such as this, where we've got a bit of a distance in between the two lane interstates, so that we can have some inside on and off ramps. Looks a little more interesting as well. But first, we're just gonna have to split this into the 2 individual highways, and that's gonna be a bit tricky. Because I want it to look very smooth, and of course this is not gonna work. We'll disable snapping, and this is probably more like it. And it looks a little odd, but I've got an idea, so just bear with me for a second here. And we're just gonna bring it out. And oops. We're of course gonna have to adjust the height here, so that there's basically no changes to the height. And then to bring these close to each other, we're gonna upgrade without snapping on. And we're basically gonna clip them into each other to get the best look. It's just gonna create these 2 like guardrails in the very center, and that's fine. Let's just have a look. Yeah, that's a lot better. And I'm just gonna do the same with the next 2 segments. And then we're gonna have to get creative. Let's see. There we go. And then I think we're gonna delete a segment here Let's see. Just delete this one, I think, and then we'll start bringing this highway to life. Disabling parallel mode, of course. And it might oh, whoops, that's bad. Gonna enable curve mode, of course. And then see if we can find 180, and that's around there. And then we're gonna go west, and we have to connect down here somewhere. So let's see if we can just maybe get a bit more space. There you go. And then we'll cross the train tracks here, and we'll go about as low as we can go before it starts causing issues, which is about 4%. I think that's fine. And for good measure, we might as well just try to connect this up all the way down here and see how that plays in and looks. And that looks pretty good. It's steep, but it's not too bad at all. I did a bit of extra tweaking, and I think we're gonna try and create the left side off-ramp from this interstate before we actually map out the other 2-lane interstate. Just so we can see what kind of height difference we need to work with, because the off-ramp that's gonna go from the left, the fast lane of this westbound part of the interstate has to cross above the train tracks, and then it has to go on a pretty steep, decline to actually reach the city down here. So if we create that first, we'll have a better idea of just how high this part of the interstate needs to be. And I'm thinking that we don't really need like a dedicated segment such as this. We'll just branch off directly, if we can at least. Okay, we'll try this setup here. We can actually move it, can't we? Yeah, we can move it real close. There you go. And then we, of course, still need to go above the train tracks. So let's keep that in mind. That's just about perfect. And then we need to branch into the city. And let's just see if that's too steep. It's not too bad at all. I think that's probably as good as it's gonna get for this type of complex connection, which means that we can try now to actually connect this up as well. And we need to go above this segment as well. And let's see if there's plenty of clearance, or that's good enough at least. And we'll flip these and see how this actually looks. It's a little hard to get an overview from up here. And we'll need the on-ramp as well, of course. So we'll do a bit of upgrading here. And I think this concludes the infrastructure here we work for now. This could probably be done even better, but it's super finicky to work with, and I'm quite pleased with the results right now. So we're gonna put a pause to this as everything is now properly connected, and we've alleviated a ton of traffic from the avenue here. And then let's jump into actually fixing up the zoning here and doing a bit of detailing as well. Alright, let's take a little recap of the stuff we've been implementing. So, I guess the city spent a couple of $1 million some years ago renovating the median strip, or whatever you'd call it, here alongside the avenue. So yeah, I went pretty heavy with some services, lots of flowers and some trees, and then I went into developer mode, grabbed the invisible pavement path and created some invisible pedestrian paths so that we've got a bit of activity in here. I've refrained from using these paths before because you couldn't delete them, but actually now with the recent update to the Anarchy mod, you're actually able to find them and delete them, which is awesome. So gonna start implementing more of that stuff. We also fixed most of the zoning. We've got a bit of repetition, of course, alongside this low density commercial avenue here, but it's not too bad. And I also did add a few medium density apartment buildings just to kind of break up the look. Next up was just kind of filling out a bit more of these spaces here because they're so empty. So we went for a pretty simple single family residential area. Same thing over here. Things are still growing because we don't have the demand, and did a few tweaks around here as well. So before we wrap up, there are a couple of things I want to fix here in Chowder Bay before we move on. And one of them is that we've got very, very little office demand. And the reason for that is basically that we don't really have a lot of high skilled labor, which makes sense because we've only got a single elementary school by now. So I'd like to establish a high school pretty early on, and even though we haven't reached, 3,500 in population yet, I think it's a good time. It's probably a good investment. We don't have a lot of space here on the main island, so I think we're gonna be moving out here into some of these residential areas and maybe building it out here. So if we just pause and start removing a bunch of streets, then that's probably gonna be the first step. And I wonder if we can angle the high school towards the water here. Would be pretty cool. And we'll just grab it and then disable snapping and see what we can get away with. I always love to disable snapping for these assets because it makes the final look a little more customized, and then just as close as possible. There you go, and it's still connected just fine. I think we're gonna remove all these houses as well. And something else we can do to just make the whole thing look a little better integrated is, of course, grab some surface painting. And then we can, well, for starters, we can just expand the existing surface. Let's see. We can make this look nice. Something like this, maybe. And we'll be also expanding this one out as well. I'm really just trying to work with like the already integrated surface of the asset. And let's see, this isn't really all that well aligned, is it? Gonna disable snapping to give us more freedom. Great, and then I think this is the manicured grass type we've got here. So we can just fill in this area as well. Actually, we're just gonna have one more path as such. Let's see. So that certainly helps it look a little more, well integrated. Oh, gotta be careful with what I'm doing now. If you make one wrong step, you can end up deleting a bunch of stuff, and I don't really want that. Cool. Then I think we can have a road just behind it. I'm not gonna attach like anything fancy to it, so just the, what's it called, the stadium, because it's just too bulky to add to the city right now, I feel. Very nice. I'm just gonna clean off the trees. Let's see. So that we can do any potential landscaping ourselves. But I think that looks pretty well integrated with the surroundings. And then we're just gonna create like a suburban road or two more so that we can zone a little extra. I think something like this is fine. And then like out back here we can have some food carts maybe. Just place in singles. Guess this is popcorn or something. And some table sets. And then we're gonna do a little more work here. So that we can get a bit more grass in play. Third time's the charm. Now I'm going to add in a few of these beautiful old trees. And the cool thing, of course, with Anarchy is that we can add these trees on top of existing assets. And I don't really know why the trees that spawn with this asset are so small. I don't even remember if they actually grow. But yeah, nonetheless, we can just add trees to our liking. Just gonna add 10 meters of distance here. Now that is a pretty sweet looking high school, if I may say so myself. And we can make it look a little better by just adding in an extension here. I don't think we're gonna need it anytime soon, but makes the building a little more interesting. And then I think it would be cool with some sort of maintenance building to use as well. Actually, maybe the park maintenance building will unlock that and use that, because I haven't actually placed one, and they're of course necessary for the parks to actually be fully efficient. So let's see what type of placement we can do. Maybe we can just bring it back from the road ever so slightly. Something like this, and then we'll have a specific small road kind of going in front as such. And once again, we're just gonna work with the surfaces that are already part of the building, because they are gonna fit our needs quite well. Something like that. And then maybe we'll just make like we'll make a bit of a small like park landscape here with some manicured grass and some big beautiful trees, and then that's pretty much what we are gonna call our high school. Don't think we're gonna do much more than that, so I'll gonna need a path in here. Let's see, like this, and then we are gonna remove the zoning here as well, and over here. Great, then just fix the zoning on these tiles and here, and then maybe a path or two more is fitting. And then some of these big trees again. Perfect. Let's make it a district of its own for good measure, so that we can kind of see it from our helicopter view. So this is of course Chowder Bay High School. It's gonna be interesting to see how many people actually enroll, but hopefully it's gonna help a bit with our office demand and just the overall development of Chowder Bay and of course Easthaven County. One more thing I want to tackle before we wrap this up is our power situation. We don't have any electricity generation of our own, so the 10 megawatts we consume, we all have to import from neighboring cities through the transformer station we've got placed up on this hill next to the radio mast. So I'm thinking that we're gonna go with a bit of a short-term solution and place down the small coal power plant, so we've got some self-sufficiency in as far as power goes. I'm just gonna, let's see, maybe we should place it here. Yeah, right next to the train tracks. Great idea. So I am just gonna terraform a bunch of stuff because we might be able to fit in a few more industrial workplaces as well. So just terraforming, then we're gonna grab our alley road here and go out and then go down something like this. And then I'm just gonna place it. Just need to get a feel for the scale. And it's a chunky one. So we actually need a bit more space even. Crazy. Let's try that again. I think this is fine, and then I'm hopeful that with Anarchy I can squeeze in a small road here as well. But for now this should be sufficient. Final bits of terraforming, maybe a something to, you know, a small breakwater as well, just to kind of stick out here. And we'll just wrap around. As I said, I do want a bit of extra space for some industrial stuff here. So I am just gonna go out and up. And then we're gonna add in our key walls, of course, so that we can do some terraforming and actually make it look like an extension to what I think is Northport, right? Yes, the Northport area. Great, let's get our terraforming done again. Great, and we're now sending electricity out. About 12 megawatts are being exported to neighboring cities, which is pretty cool. We've got our own production going now. And we've got a bit of extra space here for industrial developments, which is also just what I wanted. Get a few more workplaces in here. And I'm pretty pleased with how this turned out. I mean, generating electricity on our own is of course always nice, but the actual asset is also just so cool. They really nailed some of the bigger service buildings in this game. Anyways, that's a wrap. That's the last thing we're gonna do in this episode before it gets out of hands. On a final note, I'd love some suggestions for how we're actually gonna name this interstate here. There's gotta be some highway or interstate experts amongst you guys out there, and I don't know how to name it. Something. Remember, we're in southeastern Massachusetts. I don't really know if that makes a difference, but yeah, there you go. And then we desperately need to give a name and a bit of a backstory as well to this entire low density area here that's at the very center of the island, because we haven't actually named it yet, but we've done so much work to it. Should have a name by now, so if you got a suggestion for that as well, then let me know. And if you've got no suggestions, but you've got an idea of what's next on the chopping block for Chowder Bay, what we should build next, maybe an entirely new city, then feel free to comment as well. With all that said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll shoot some cinematics for you guys now, and I hope to see you all in the next one. Goodbye.